handouts in the front here over here. And so I'll just get started.
Oh, time. Thank you.
So University of Central Florida Downtown is a new 15-acre campus located in downtown Orlando that just opened on August 26th in partnership with Valencia College. The campus nearness to Orlando's central business district places 7,000 students within walking distance of job and internship opportunities. The new downtown campus includes a 2,400 square foot branch library to support the many graduate and undergraduate programs transferred downtown from UCF's main campus. The downtown library also has a blended UCF/Valencia collection of print and online resources, a reading room, consultation areas, staff offices, and a blended UCF-Valencia staff. Well, one of UCF Library's first decisions regarding the new downtown campus was how best to provide subject librarian support for the transferred programs. In addition to hiring a full-time downtown librarian and professional staff, should UCF also hire downtown subject librarians? Or would it be better for UCF's transferred academic departments to simply retain their trusted veteran subject librarians and ask those subject librarians to split their time between two campuses? 4 out of 12 of the subject librarians then would have program assignments on 2 campuses. The decision was that the 4 subject librarians who served programs that were transferred downtown would continue to support those programs while also continuing to support their programs remaining at main campus. Before the downtown campus opened, these 4 subject librarians prepared by participating in downtown orientation sessions, contributing to reassuring newsletters sent to faculty and students who were being transferred downtown, gathering faculty input about collections needed for downtown programs, with some legacy collections being transferred downtown, as well as new titles being bought for the downtown campus. As the final countdown began for the August 26th downtown opening, the subject librarians encountered 11th hour challenges. First of all, they found out that the downtown library was going to be delayed by 2 months, and that the transfer of print collections to the downtown library was also going to be delayed by 2 months. That library staff computers and printers were delayed. Then there were difficulties finding locations for downtown instruction and consultations, difficulties with parking, and difficulties in commuting in downtown Orlando traffic. Construction on the new downtown campus library finally was completed just a few weeks ago, October 14th. The new library offers a help desk, course reserves, and a daily courier services for interlibrary requests. Subject librarians are initially scheduling specific days or blocks of time to work at the downtown campus each week. UCF now operates 15 daily round-trip express shuttles between the main and downtown campus to help those subject librarians get there. Now subject librarians are also providing instruction in classrooms that are designed to facilitate active learning. All classrooms in the downtown campus have mobile furniture, projectors, wall monitors, and whiteboards. In addition to being able to reserve office space as needed in the downtown library office suite, subject librarians have access to 4 consultation spaces where they can meet with faculty and students. To accommodate research consultation on dual campuses, the subject librarians are using the Spring Share program entitled LibCal for appointment requests at both the downtown and main campus locations. Since many downtown programs offer online course options, subjects librarians are beginning to rely on tools such as Zoom and Skype to increase their embedded presence in online courses. What are the pros and cons of our dual librarian system so far? Well, the pros include continuing to be assigned to familiar academic programs and familiar faculty, and the excitement of working at a brand new campus. The cons include the 2-month delay of the downtown library opening, delays in print collections arriving in downtown, and problems with traffic and parking. Another responsibility for our dual campus librarians they're now being asked to order new materials using 2 separate ordering systems. So they have to learn how to use both Oasis, and they're also using Gobi. And this is for our acquisitions program, or our acquisitions department, to better track main versus downtown orders. How is this affecting mainline library managers like myself? Well, we need to make sure that the communication lines are free-flowing with the dual campus subject librarians and keeping abreast of their schedules. We need to provide more training with LibCal, LibWizard, Zoom, and Skype to strengthen subject librarian skills in online instruction and assessment. And we need to make our reference meetings available via online technologies. And now, how are we going to go forward with this model? Well, it all depends on our assessment of the model. So every month we're doing formative assessment. The subject librarians come to our monthly reference meetings, and they let us know how they're doing, what they need, what's going on. They talk to all the subject librarians as a whole and to each other. They also share their experiences with me and their written reports at each month. And at the end of the year, we will have summative assessment going on in our reference nutrient. That's it for me.
Yeah, different colors. Thank you, Barbara, for that. You know, we all have a lot of questions about scaling liaison programs and new buildings, and you know, and the assessment fees. We pulled in a lot of things that a lot of libraries are challenged with, and we all look forward to hearing more about what you are doing and how it works out. And shout out to LibCal too, man. We just got LibCRM and we love it. It's great. It's a great system for, you know, tracking our contacts with our stakeholders. And we don't have a moderator, so we're all for those that came in. We're figuring this out as we go along, but we're having a lot of fun doing it. And we're getting her started in a minute, but with me, so. My name is Mary Ellen Sloane. I'm the science librarian at Middle Tennessee State University. And your former colleague, Jason Martin, if you were there when he was there, Jason Martin, he is now at Middle Tennessee State University. Thank you so much. And if you could give me a 1 minute warning, I'm not so good on the time things, so you know, I may end early or I may get cut off, but are you ready? Yep. Okay. Well, again, I'm from Middle Tennessee State University. My name is Mary Ellen Sloane. I'm the science librarian, and today I'm going to just boil down a 45-minute workshop for grad students into about 5.5 minutes. And I want to preface it by saying that I want one of your takeaways to be something about pedagogy and something about teaching, So in a minute, you're going to become grad students, and that's why you all have a subject. You'll have a subject to kind of think about. The colored paper, which is now coming around, is your research area as a grad student. So in a minute, you're going to become grad students. But until then, I want you to think about a takeaway being not only what we teach, but how we teach it. So I really believe in storytelling as a teaching strategy, and there's a really great book from Data Management from Researchers. And I'm going to read that in a moment as soon as you become grad students. But what I like to do when I teach is 4 things. I show people and then I tell them, or I tell them and I show them, and then I let them show me and tell me. So it's important that you include storytelling, demonstration into your teaching, and that you also include the opportunity for hands-on learning and reflection by those students. So I hope that you can think about that as I go through this today. So are you ready to become grad students?
Yes.
Okay, look at your topic. 3, 2, 1, you're grad students now. And what I want to tell you about is first a story. I'm going to read this from a book that I'm going to cite in a moment. And it starts on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong climbed out of his spacecraft and placed his feet on the moon. The landing was broadcast live all over the world and was a significant event in both scientific and human history. Today we can still watch the grainy video of the moon landing, but what we cannot do is watch the original higher quality footage or examine some of the data from the mission. This is because much of the data from early space exploration is lost forever. Among the lost data are the original Apollo 11 tapes containing high-quality video footage of the moon landing. Their loss first came to light in 2006, and NASA personnel spent the next 3 years searching for the tapes across multiple continents before concluding that they were likely wiped and reused for data storage sometime in the 1970s. That's shocking. But today, the data management problem is all of ours and all of yours as graduate students. So today I'm going to provide you some information and tools for going forward and figuring out what does data management mean for you. So I have an outline of my presentation here, and then I have an opportunity for you to reflect on how this impacts your studies here. What is data? Again, I'm boiling 45 minutes down to 6 minutes, so bear with me. Data is any research output. It also includes all the documentation related to your project, such as any permissions, information about your sources, information about validation, and variable descriptions. So when you think about the data for your project, think about all that documentation information related to your project. It can be all kinds of files, and of course some of these might include qualitative data as well as data with distinct variables. Data management is done at all stages of the research life cycle. So when you're finding other people's data, when you're creating your own data and processing it, and you're analyzing it, of course when you're publishing and sharing it with others, your data management takes place at all of those life stages. Let's spend a few moments, and first of all, look at the student worksheet. What do you want to learn about data management? You can reflect on that with your topic. And think about what file types you'll use in your research area. And now we're going to spend a few minutes, not really, but if I had forgotten, and we're going to find some data sets, and we're going to look at the data ecosystem and the scholarly communication in your discipline, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that. Now we're going to learn about ethical uses of data. There's been a lot of research that's been debunked, there's been a lot of retractions, there's been a lot more awareness of the issues of reproducibility in science and all kinds of scholarly communication. So what I want you all to encourage you all to do is find out what are those ethical considerations in your discipline. Do you have human subject protection? Is data privacy an issue? What about the collection, storage, and use of your data? I want you to go out and from today learn about those disciplinary best practices, which also include the preservation of your data for the long term. This is a book that I recommend to everybody, and that's the book that I just read from about NASA. So recommend that you own that book. It really applies to all different subjects, so no problem there. And I want to talk about managing your data, and think about the way that you're organizing your data, how you include information about validation, the information in the files that you're maintaining, all the cleanup, how you're ensuring privacy, all the metadata and documentation, and I would spend a few minutes in explaining what metadata is. in the documentation. Really, the check for you should be, in 2 years, are you going to remember what you did? Or are you going to have to go back and do some kind of forensic analysis to actually figure out what you did when it's time to write it up in your thesis or dissertation? So you want to include everything that your future self is going to thank you for when you are managing your data. Let's look at a couple examples of well-curated data and poorly curated data. And we're going to think about the impacts that those researchers have on their own research and the research of others who are studying in the same discipline. Now I'm going to talk about how important it is to learn new software. I'm really sorry, this is where the bad news comes in. As graduate students today, you have to become comfortable with learning new software constantly and learning what software is typically used in your fields and what software methodologies are used. So we're going to talk a little bit about data software tools. Now we're going to talk about learning what makes a good visualization, and this is a really fun Reddit. Shitty data is beautiful, and lots of really fun examples there of really, really bad visualizations and what not to do. So we're going to talk about what makes a good visualization, having meaningful column labels and descriptions, telling a story, and using color effectively. And now we're going to share about visualization software. And sorry, more bad news, you now have to learn visualization software too. You can't just use Excel, lots of really good tools in Excel, but you can branch out and explore some other things too and really impress your advisors with what you can do. And here at MTSU, we have a lot of great resources for learning software. We LinkedIn Learning, we have O'Reilly, we have more books in our catalog, and lots of fun. You can learn that software. All done, and I'm out of time. Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's you. No, that's you.
Is it me?
Adam. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Adam Beauchamp from.
Beauchamp.
What? Beauchamp.
Yeah, I'm Adam Beauchamp from Florida State.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I promise this first slide is the only one that has the Florida State background, full garnet going on. There we go. So yeah, I'm Adam Beauchamp, the Humanities Librarian at Florida State. And the title of my presentation, E Pluribus Bibliothecam, is a reference to the conference theme, which was talking about many things. But we have many librarians who have some kind of subject liaison role, and we don't have a lot of opportunities to talk about monograph acquisitions together and have a strategic plan about that. So what I'm going to talk about is the group we put together and how we tackled this past summer and continuing into this fall, performing our monograph acquisitions. So what was the problem we were having with monographs? Well, there were a couple of things. The first one was that our approval profile, we use GoLeap for our acquisitions for monographs, hadn't been looked at really in 3 years, and my understanding is that it wasn't changed those 3 years ago either. So we've been running the same profile for a while. We also have some budget allocations that are a little bit outdated. One of the things, I've only been at FSU for a little over a year, and one of the things I first noticed as the humanities librarian is that my budgets are all in firm ordering and we're not getting a lot of stuff automatic, and I wasn't having that. We were also hearing some concerns from faculty, especially new faculty, who were surprised to find certain gaps in our collections of standard university press titles. And a lot of our subject librarians, subject liaison is not their primary role. They are doing other things like digital humanities and student success and outreach. And so they had not had a lot of experience doing systematic assessment of an approval profile or monograph acquisition. So we had some training needs as well. Go forward. And so then we created the MORP, the Monograph Ordering Reform Project. I did not come up with that acronym, but it's kind of hilarious. It's a small group of a couple of subject librarians with some folks from our acquisitions team as well. And the idea was that the MORP would provide leadership to this broad strategy of reviewing and updating our monograph acquisition strategy. We did a lot of the data analysis and also trained our subject librarians on how to interpret that data and think strategically about the research and teaching needs of their subject liaison roles. And the pictures that I have here are from our historic FSU photograph collection. And you know, MORP doesn't lend itself to a photo, so this is nursing students taking the blood pressure, which is another function that we serve for ourselves. The data analysis, speaking of NASA and old-timey computing, that we did, we took 4 years of circulation data, interlibrary loan data, and UBarrow, which my colleague at Central Florida will know is a Florida statewide shared borrowing system, so it's kind of in between our local print circulation and nationwide interlibrary loan. So we had 3 different kinds of uses that we were analyzing. And what we did is we analyzed that usage along the same lines as the way Gobi breaks down the Library of Congress classification ranges, so that we were comparing apples to apples, and their usage would all match how it appears on the profile. And the Excel spreadsheet that is attached to this slide, and my slides are uploaded to the conference site, is those plain number files, number columns for the LC ranges if you wanted to use that. I had to break it out of a PDF, so it took a minute. So we used the raw counts, which were important for providing some context. We used percentages of each type, and I'll show you a quick snippet of the spreadsheet to give you a sense of what we're doing. And ratios, since not all the LC ranges are the same size, we tried to standardize so that you could compare across the system. This is just a snippet of what that spreadsheet looked like. So we had the LC ranges, you can see they're broken out with start and ending call numbers so that we could do the counts with Excel formulas. The local items are the number of print titles on the shelves. We didn't include ebooks in this particular analysis because going back to fiscal year 2015, which is the beginning of my 4-year time span, there was not a lot of ebook purchasing. And just for simplicity and to get this project rolling, we just went with the print collection for now. Definitely going forward, because we certainly have commitments in e-purchasing now that we'll need to roll into this the next time we do it. But the percentage there represents the percentage of the collection that represents. So that first range of Ds is 0.31% of all the books on the shelves in the libraries. Same for the local circulation, that's the actual number, but the percentage of all circulations. And so then you can see the green next to local circulation is the ratio of percent circulation to percent local holdings. And we used that to compare, okay, so if this range represents, let's say, 50% of the collection, does it also represent 50% of circulations? And so that was how we tried to standardize a little bit across the ranges. Is this kind of circulating at the same rate we would expect based on how much space it takes up in our collection? Same for ILL and the Florida system UBarrow. And then we used colors, which are percentiles, rather than set a standard we expect it to be 1-to-1, which I see in the literature. We used percentiles across the whole column to draw the eye of the subject librarian to see where usage was good, as we would hope, or usage maybe was not so good. So for local circulation, green inferring good is where we have high use of our local holdings. But we used red in the interlibrary loan and UBarrow to indicate high use of those external borrowing activities, suggesting that we don't have the things locally that people need, and so they're using those services more intensely. Thank you. And so we spent the summer educating ourselves. We had many sessions with all the subject librarians to explain that spreadsheet, which I know I haven't done a smashing job of at this particular moment, but the time crunch, I'm happy to talk about it later. We shared tips on how to look at department programs and draft up some collection development strategies. We had our Gobi rep, Katie, was wonderful. She came and spent 3 days in Tallahassee with us. And we met in small groups and worked through the whole profile. We had lots of fun with pivot tables, not just looking at the LC ranges, but publishers, the fund codes that we used, all the other non-subject parameters. And then the wheels fell off. We realized that as much as we wanted to just be able to tweak the approval profile and rebalance some of our budget allocations, we overspent in our hopes to adjust to our research and teaching needs. Those ebook packages, we've got DDAs that are blowing up this year in a way they haven't in the past several years. We're experimenting with EBA programs, evidence-based acquisitions, and we have some subscription ebook packages as well, which completely complicate the situation. So there's much work yet to be done. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes. Let's welcome Cécile, and Cécile is from France. Really?
I'm the European.
For real? I thought you were pulling her leg. Okay, and thank you very much, Adam. I think that a lot of us can relate to approval plan challenges, and it looks like we found some good solutions there.
That's what I Anyway, okay. So hi, my name is Cécile, and my last name is Polish. I'm from France, and I'm Secretary General for the National Association we have for academic libraries. We work at the national level, and we exist since 1974, and we cover all libraries in France, which means all these spots all over the world. And mainly, we have our campuses in the metropolitan part of France, physical campuses, virtual ones, and hybrid campuses. Also, we have national plans for connected campuses in rural zones. I would be happy to talk later with you if you wish about this. We are almost all civil servants. We have national competitions to become librarians, and I'm going to talk only about public higher education libraries. Some quick figures. This is in French, but let's have a look. This is the median average of opening hours. This is the number of electronic articles that are consulted, not only seen but opened once a year. E-book consultation, number of loans, number of academic libraries in France, staff. So if you consider the ratio between staff and students, what's this? And this is the number of visitors we have every year in the whole network. So that's a small thing for you. I'm going to talk a bit about spaces. We have 1.3 million square meters in France. This is metric system. I'm sorry if I talk about the imperial system. It makes me think about Napoleon, and I don't want to invade Europe again. We made a benchmark with open data provided by governments or library associations in Europe. 17 countries out of 24. So we wanted to make a benchmark and see what part of the spaces were dedicated to the public, what part of the spaces were dedicated to staff. And if we look at the trends we have, we realize that we always use in Europe our spaces, and it's the same here, I suppose, as a welcoming pathway, as a guidance into university for undergraduate students, mainly because my focus here is about students and no researchers. It's like a campus marker. If we want to have a focus about population, in France there are only 67 million people, all right? In Germany, almost 83 million, and Estonia, for example, is 1.3 million, like Dallas city. So it's hard to compare. And we worked on a benchmark to see what our users were doing in our spaces, what were the numbers, and how they reacted to our different services. So our number of seats per student, for example, in France is 10 only. In Austria, 25. In Ireland, 6.8. It means that we have rather large spaces, but few seats. And our trend is to evolve towards group meeting rooms for group stations. 20% of the seating places in Finland, for example, are dedicated now to group work. Other countries, France, Spain, are only 10%. And we are thinking more and more about taking labs inside libraries. This is a musicology faculty in Paris, and this is the anatomy room in Lyon, for example. In Corsica, also, they worked on gathering people into flexible spaces, not only for learning, but for networking and for developing student engagement, as you can say. For the collections, we did the same. We have our treasures. Well, this is a map of the moon before photography. But we put all our efforts on providing the more books we can. For example, in my university, it's a low one. For bestsellers, we stop buying at the 42 exam. For example, there's one book and I have 42 volumes, the same one. That's the maximum we offer because of our budgets and space constraints. But in France, you have the same thing in most part of Europe. You never buy only one volume for one book. You buy as many as you can, so that it rolls and students can use them. And we work as a network, I told you. We have a national structure for interloan. And they have big stocks of books for interloan purposes. That's it. And we moved more and more from collection to services. Like collection is now provided as a service and not as a property, let's say. And it goes with all the kind of services we can develop, and I'm almost out of my time. So animation, culture, siesta, information, literacy training, we are rocketed up. Within 5 years, we have national plans for this. This is the impossible slide, the forbidden slide in the Peshakusha, just to give you an idea of the number of staff for students and total library expenditure, including salaries for students. We can talk about this later if you want, between us. I stop here. This means, I'm sorry, my English is not fluent, so I can't keep my time. This means great ideas start here. This is our motto for the libraries. Thank you.
Thank you much, Cécile. I really appreciate the bird's eye view of the data, and how would that compare to university systems here? We don't really have it data available to us. So, are there questions for any other? And I said I'm here. So, any questions for any of the presenters today? Would you like to know more about it? What? Rebecca, I'm sorry. Why didn't you go? I was wondering, why didn't you go after me? I was just, you were timing. No, you just said go. I told Adam to go. Forgive me.
It's fine. I'm not worried about the order. I don't think anyone was particularly
So hold your questions. Okay. Thank you. And I will start my timer here.
Keep it up here too.
Okay.
Also, I tend to speak really quickly, and you put a stopwatch in front of me, and I'm going to go even faster. So if I get going too quickly, somebody just throw up some hands. Hi, everybody. It's hard to follow France because I'm from the very exciting town of Champaign, Illinois. My name is Rebecca Crist, and I am the Library Projects Manager for the Big Ten Academic Alliance. For those of you who are not sports fans, the Big Ten is 15 universities across 11 states in central United States, including the universities of Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio State, and State, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. That's in the slide later if you need it. Among the projects I coordinated our shared print repository project, in which 15 schools are creating a print backfile journals collection located in high-density storage facilities centralized in Illinois and Indiana. I should point out right up front that this mapping work that I'm going to show you is kind of my hobby, as sad as that is, and it's not part of my official work with the Big Ten, so any terribleness of the data is all on me and should not reflect on them. So here's the general idea. Let's see if I can advance slides here. Yeah, so here's the general idea. There's all this shared print in shared collections all over the country and Canada, and theoretically other places, though not so much really. So let's look at where it is, and it sounded so simple. It so wasn't. A quick history of this project. The Big Ten is a member of the shared print, or the Rosemont Shared Print Alliance, which is a federation of serials-based shared print programs across the U.S. that includes West, East, Flair, and Scholars Trust. One of the goals of the Rosemont Alliance is to retain 3 copies of each print title, ideally spread across multiple geographic regions. which prompted some questions about what even are the regions, and there are also a lot of members to keep track of. So to illustrate the breadth of our membership, I decided to make a map. And this is that map showing the membership of the Rosemont Shared Print Alliance. Yeah. Yay, right? So why stop there? I thought that this idea of presenting information about shared print in a geographic setting has a lot of potential, and there are a lot of exciting possibilities. And I've been working on a project looking at overlapping lending networks among our membership. So got me thinking about the multiple shared print commitments that some of our schools have. For example, the University of Iowa contributes serials volumes to the Big Ten's collection and also retains volumes under a serials retention agreement already in place with the University of Wisconsin and Iowa State University, and they retain monographs for the Hathi Trust. So in 2017, I started mapping shared print networks at large, and it looks like this. It's pretty, right? It's also basically meaningless. First, you'll notice that it's not tied to geographic coordinates, so you get a really interesting idea of the networks, but all this shows is that some shared print partnerships have a lot of members. You can, if you look really hard, see that some of them are participants in multiple networks and are connected various ways. And I turned this into a poster for ACRL, which you can find out in the world. But that's it. So how do we make more than that out of it? And the answer to that was to make more maps. But what to map? Membership in these programs, storage locations, where things actually are. I can make this right here. Or the actual items themselves. All of those sound great, so let's go. And I got really excited about this. I thought, let's start easy. We'll map shared print membership. That should be easy. But then questions started popping up. How do we find out membership? Well, let's look at the programs. What does it mean to be a program? What does it mean to be a member of a program? What if they share items but don't formally commit to retain the items? What if they commit to retain the items but don't validate items to see whether they're actually there? What if there's no formal agreement? But what if they're retaining but not registering the commitments? What if we all got together and signed an MOU and we have a governance agreement and we did a mass gold rush or green glass analysis, and then we said, okay, use that information however you want to. What about affiliate members of programs who have not yet retained or contributed or paid or weeded or changed any of their collection development plans as a result? They can still borrow, they can theoretically withdraw based on retention commitments that have already been reported, but so can I, so can you, and so can you. So what does it even mean to be a member of the program if we're basically all members? So setting aside all of that, I said, perhaps we should just settle this down a little bit and scale back. So we went to, let's dissect a portion of the membership. Starting with members of formal shared print programs with formal retention commitments in the United States, as reported by the programs themselves, excluding agreements that are just to save the last copy of something somewhere, and single institution retention commitments, and I am undoubtedly missing some. This is what that looks like. Again, pretty, but not essentially useful. On this version, you can see the programs that all of those nodes are connected to, and you can get a sense of where membership is across the country. But basically what this is just a population map of the United States, right? We can see that there are a lot of storage partners in the Northeast, but there are also a lot of universities in the Northeast. Finding that that was not particularly useful, I decided to scale back to just places that had confirmed that they were actually locations where items were being held in retention. And this is no doubt missing some, and this is confirmed through the programs themselves or their public retention commitments. And you can see, again, we have high density in the Northeast, we have high density on the West Coast, we have a big expanse in the middle, but you'll see Maine, for example, looks really heavily represented. Like Maine has gone shared print crazy, and a little bit they have. They're doing some really good work up there with the Maine shared collections, but it's a little overrepresented because they have a distributed collection. So a university that retains even a single volume of a single title is considered a retention partner, whereas CRL JSTOR, who has millions of volumes that have been digitized, electronically available, physically validated, and reported, has 3 nodes on here, and it looks like nothing. But we can see that as we're storing print for the future, we're aggregating content in a few areas, specifically the Hurricane Sandy region over here, the Ring of Fire region in the Pacific Northwest and the wildfire country of Southern California. Oops, I'm leaning on something. That's a lot of territory. So, and then the other thing you'll notice here is the big gap in the middle where we could put all kinds of microfiche from government storage things. There's a lot of territory left to go with this. I've still got a lot of data collection and clean up to do. Let's skip the slide. There we go. But I already have the data to do this for monographs as well. I'm mapping by the number of volumes retained and looking at Canada and other international programs if you want to see more about that. The work is posted and you can follow me on Twitter or contact me directly. Here's some information about the programs that were used and the image credits. Thank you very much.